Good afternoon, everyone. It's 2 o'clock on Tuesday, June 30th. We're having an emergency meeting of Bluffton Town Council. All of council is present. We will start by all saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is the invocation, Mayor Pro Tem.
Let us pray. Most merciful and Heavenly Father, we come down thanking you for grace. Father, we thank you for mercy. Father, we thank you for all that you've doing in our lives and in these times that we're experiencing. Father, I ask that you now give us your wisdom so that we make decisions that are based on your beliefs and your will for our lives. Father, give us the right heart to make decisions for those who we vow to serve. Father, make sure that our personal views are not of those who we serve, but make sure that our hearts of our brothers keep us. Father, give us your will to be bold enough to stand firm in your belief. These and all other blessings in your son, holy name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Adoption of the agenda, are there any changes, Mr. Orlando?
No, ma'am.
The agenda is on the screen. If not, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in, any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Without that, that's unanimous. Next is public comment. We are asking for public comment to be submitted through the town's website 2 hours prior to the meeting. That's been on every agenda since April, I believe. I will say we did get one from a business owner, and out of respect of her business being in the town of Bluffton, we did forward that public comment on to council, and that was from Christy Pinsky of Sipping Cow, but it wasn't in the time frame we had. So Kim, I think we have a lot of public comment. We will go through them and read everything up to the 3-minute mark, and then we will move on to the formal agenda item. So Kim, our town clerk, is up.
Great. Rick Howell of 43 Hartwood Court. I wear a mask in public for 3 reasons. First, to increase the safety of me and my family. Second, to reduce the risk I may spread the virus to others if I have it, but am asymptomatic. Third, I contribute to the overall effort to shut the virus down in the community. Though guidance from authorities in the early days was unclear, experts today all agree that masks do help with all 3 goals above. Even if the aid a mask provides is small, the inconvenience is very minor. I myself am libertarian, and I am very reluctant to blindly allow the government to take away my rights. But with freedom comes responsibility. In a time of significant public health crisis, it is incumbent on the government to act, but do so in a minimally invasive way. In light of the impact that wearing a mask can have on improving all of our lives and the minor inconveniences imposed, it is clear that ordering masks to be worn is the right decision. Next, Doris Archenbach of 7 Sweet Marsh Court, Bluffton. The primary responsibility should be to preserve the health and life of our citizens. The increase in positive testing shows that this crisis is expanding and affecting people of all ages. I agree with the CEO of Beaufort Memorial Hospital, quoted, "The only way to slow this current surge is universal masking. Anything we can do to bring down the numbers should be implemented. We must look out for everyone, including our first responders. Since some people remain uninformed of the danger, it is up to the officials to create the requirements." Next, Barry Lee, 16 Hampton Lake Crossing. Please require masks. It is essential for our health. Jan Horan, 181 Farnsley Avenue. Please protect us and make masks mandatory. Nancy Golden, 20 Hampton Lake Crossing. I wholly support the need to create an ordinance to require everyone living in or visiting Bluffton to wear a mask. When out in public, protect the residents of Bluffton. I also support getting those individuals who are seen by law enforcement who are not wearing a mask. If you don't have some way to enforce and punish, then there will continue to be non-compliance. Arthur Linehan, 102 Somerton Drive. Let's require masks in retail establishments before all the small businesses go bankrupt and half of us are dead. Next, David Abel, 4 Landsmere Place, Bluffton. It's very important to everyone for people to wear masks inside public facilities. The number of corona cases are spiking in South Carolina and in Bluffton. This is a simple way that you can impact the safety of the citizens you represent. With the number of visitors that visit this area every year, it is no wonder our cases and deaths are on the rise. Please vote yes on this agenda item and help keep your constituents healthy, safe, and alive. John Genovese, 68 Farnsley Avenue, Bluffton. The town must step in to provide the much needed regulation requiring face masks whenever people appear in public, visit the restaurants, shop, or other venues in this area. It is unfortunate that our governor lacks the political will to do so for the area and the state as a whole. I would remind those objecting on the basis of their constitutional rights that free speech ends if you cry fire in a movie theater or announce a local bank is failing. In fact, you cannot shop barefooted or shirtless. Let common sense prevail. The first duty of government is to protect its citizens. Mark Barnes, 25 Sherbrooke Avenue, Bluffton. Masks are a major deterrent to COVID and we should be wearing them. Please make them mandatory. Rich Schulteger, 20 Lakewood Court, Bluffton. Please consider making the wearing of masks mandatory in all public buildings. Emily Genovese, 68 Farnsley Avenue, Bluffton. As sorry as I am to learn that mandatory mask wearing may be a thing of the future, I predicted a spike in positive COVID-19 cases as soon as our area reopened to the public, locals and visitors alike. Therefore, I'm not at all surprised. In fact, I'm quite pleased. It makes me terribly uncomfortable to shop in grocery stores with people who believe that masks are useless and unnecessary. I recently witnessed 2 young women, one was pregnant, with their little one shopping in public without masks. It's frightening. There is a great deal of documented evidence from reputable medical sources that confirm that wearing of masks is a huge benefit for both the wearer and anyone the wearer may come in contact with. Ignorance is bliss. Please help us all and make masks mandatory when out in public, as there are so many people that refuse to do so for reasons that have nothing to do with the health and well-being of our families, friends, and community. Faith Berger, 50 Shelburne Street. I'm grateful that you are considering mandatory mask wearing in public. There should have been no easing of staying home rules or opening any of the businesses or services without strict orders to wear a mask in public. Please pass this ordinance and attach penalties for non-compliance. Countries who have gotten this virus under control have done this and more. Patricia Summers, 25 Coventry Court, Bluffton. Mandatory masks without a good supply of masks not made in China is giving Chinese Communist Party business from their personal onslaught in the world and America. I went to Kroger's, every mask was made in China, plus children's lungs and respiratory systems are still forming. We are being subjected to unauthorized mandates. This is America, not socialist Europe or communist China, yet. Stop and think and be sure that we are not being manipulated and losing our freedoms by unscrupulous politicians and dubious agendas. I am opposed to forced wearing of masks for several health and other reasons. But for this letter, I will focus on only one health reason and point out constitutional applications. Please consider carefully that you are not medically qualified to make this call. If you mandate masks and it results in harm to anyone, and it will, you will be opening yourselves up to lawsuits. I will point out a few things I consider would be constitutional applications of the phrase below. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. Number 1, the government is here to serve us, not enslave us. 2, domestic tranquility is impossible to maintain if we encourage large groups of masked thugs who cannot be identified when they commit crimes. 3, domestic tranquility is impossible to maintain when people are agitated, struggling to breathe, experiencing claustrophobia, and unable to read faces to determine friend or foe. 4, South Carolina's own law, section 16-7-110, forbids masks to establish justice and to ensure domestic tranquility. Yes, there are exceptions, but I caution you, do not abuse exceptions. The Declaration of Independence affords us the right to pursue happiness. It is impossible to be happy when forced to wear a mask. General pleasantries cease when we are not allowed to greet one another with a smile. Deaf and hard of hearing people can't function at all without the ability to read facial expressions and lips. Frustration leads to violence, and you will be responsible for creating such conditions. I could go on and on with examples, but you get the idea. Please do not require masks in Bluffton or anywhere else in South Carolina. Laura Rogers, 207 Reston Circle. I'm fully in favor of requiring face masks inside all buildings. Linda Lyons, 29 Anchor Cove Court. It is very important to everyone's health and well-being and to protect our economy to enforce the usings of masks in public places. We had neighbors who were turned away from attending a wedding in New York because South Carolina's COVID rate is abysmal. As someone with underlying health conditions and helping to take care of 2 family cancer patients, I would like to have the freedom to live and everyone wear masks. Will continue to do that. Please vote for life, not death. Thomas Noble, 172 Flatwater Drive. There are huge numbers of people who either live here or are coming in from outside the county who are not adhering to the advice to wear face coverings in public places. This is undoubtedly contributing to the spread of COVID-19. As there has been a marked increase in cases here over the past few weeks, there should be a requirement that all people wear face coverings in public places. This will be most difficult to enforce in bars and restaurants, where social spacing is even more important, as masks are removed when eating or drinking. But there is good evidence that masks protect both the wearer and those around the transmission for the virus. There is no excuse for not protecting yourself and your friends and family. Rose Cofield, 151 Pinecrest Drive. Please vote to require masks in public places and retail stores. New COVID-19 cases keep rising. Do something to contain it. Next, Janine Mutterer, 5 Able Street, Bluffton. I'm in support of the town ordinance requiring the wearing of masks in public spaces where distancing may not be possible. Jim Curtis, 10 Pettigrew Plantation Road, Bluffton. I would urge you to consider requiring masks in all public places, not just grocery stores and pharmacies. Compared to what both Hilton Head and the city of Beaufort have recently enacted, the narrow focus of Bluffton's proposal falls short of what will be required to stem the COVID levels in Bluffton. I'm concerned that this narrow focus will not arrest the sharp increase in cases of Bluffton. Additionally, it will inevitably confuse the public, particularly Bluffton residents who travel back and forth to Hilton Head or Beaufort. The requirement should be aligned and adequate to the challenge. David Barnum, 11 Morning Court, Bluffton. There is so much ambiguity in the data, the mayor should not make this mandatory. I have read so much about how masks not only are totally ineffective, but actually will prolong the issue. We all knew the caseload would go up, but when you start testing more people, now 25+ million, while more people from highly infected areas come down here to get away from the repression, they have been facing their home states. If you want to wear a mask, go ahead. I respect your decision, but don't make me wear one and respect mine. This is abusive and uncomfortable for those who don't want to wear a mask. Valerie Emerson, 141 Bainbridge Way, Bluffton. Please pass a requirement that residents of Bluffton wear face masks. We want to decrease the spread of COVID-19 so that our children can go back to their classrooms and their school buildings. Long distance learning and at-home instruction is not providing the necessary education that our children need. Thank you for your service. Todd Shea, 17 Maiden Cane Street, Bluffton. I will not be wearing a mask no matter if a mandate is passed or not because I don't care about the people in our community. I will not wear a mask because I put 100% of my faith in God. I don't walk in fear, I walk in faith. It is against my God-given right as an American citizen for the government that we elect to enforce me to wear a mask. I have the right to practice my religious beliefs, especially after President Trump signed executive orders. Executive order on advancing international religious freedom. Thank you and have a blessed day. Joel Lerner, 4 Reston Place, Bluffton. Please make the wearing of masks mandatory all the time. No exceptions, all stores. Jacqueline Friedel, 45 Martingale East, Bluffton. Please consider a more inclusive response to mask wearing as our case numbers are still escalating. It is important for those towns with especially high escalations to be consistent with one another. Hilton Head has passed a broader understanding of mask wearing for the public to include all commercial sites. Additionally, although it is important to regain a strong economic base, curtailing hours of places such as parks, beaches, and bars might not close, but could have reduced operating hours to decrease public contacts. This seems like a viable compromise. It would be appreciated if my concerns and suggestions could be passed along and considered in your proposal. Murray Cease, 56 Calhoun Street, Bluffton. I am one of the managing owners at La Petite Gallery on Calhoun Street. We have begun requiring face masks in our gallery starting last Friday. We would feel so much better about it if it were a requirement for all people in public places or at least all retail spaces. I hear you will be discussing that in your town meeting tomorrow. I just wanted to let you know how I feel. Brandy Talmadge, 42 Daffodil Farm Road, Bluffton. No masks. There's no evidence to support that they work. The requirement to wear one violates my rights. Rick Barton, 218 Waterstone Way, Bluffton. Unless the public locations where the mask will be required are also required to properly sanitize their location, it's all window dressing. Will Publix be required to sanitize the checkout conveyor and the card reader after each customer? Have all canned goods wiped down after someone puts it back on the shelf? How about a cashier behind me? If I turn away from a plastic barrier in front of me to sneeze, the cashier behind me gets the full effect of my sneeze, even if I try to cover up. While the increase in cases continues to arise, hospitalization and death rates continue to decrease. Destroying the economy over a death rate of less than 0.5% is foolhardy. And for full disclosure, I'm 67 years old and have had a previous medical condition that would put me in a higher risk group. Bonnie Lucetti, 122 Pinecrest Circle, Bluffton. It is not the government's responsibility to protect us from ourselves. If you want to wear a mask, wear it. If you don't, don't. I do not think that we have the resources to cause our police department to enforce the mandatory mask law. The end result will have hundreds of citizens police thinking it is their duty to enforce the law, the publicly humiliating others. It would be prudent to insist that retail and restaurants have frontline employees wear masks. The store I manage already does that. If the guest is uncomfortable in a particular environment, they should leave or simply not go out. Businesses are going to great lengths to create safe environments for our guests, but in the end, it's all about personal choice. Bill Walker, 137 Commodore DuPont Street, Bluffton. Please require masks to be worn indoors and outdoors unless medically unable. Leonard Gaska, 93 Heronville Drive, Bluffton. Bluffton should be wearing mandatory masks at this time and all during COVID-19. Catherine Gaska, 93 Heronville Drive, Bluffton. We all need to wear masks for safety reasons during COVID-19. John Curtis, Westbury Park, Bluffton. My name is John Curtis. I'm 67 years old and a resident of the estates at Westbury and a property owner of more than 3 years. I stand today in opposition to the proposed mandatory face mask proposal. There are no scientific studies or data present that confirm masks have any positive impact on the spread of the disease. Recent studies published by Stanford University and the University of Southern California were inconclusive, showing that viruses and bacteria can and do escape masks, and masks are not effective safeguards to the public. However, they did show health risks to the public by forcing the wearing of masks, in particular, that wearing masks is dehumanizing and has negative emotional, mental, and physical responses to both adults and in particular children who are traumatized. The WHO and CDC have been spectacularly wrong in all of their projections, estimates, pronouncements, and guesses for the last 4 months, showing profound reversals when proved to be wrong. They are even counting probable cases and deaths where they don't know, fudging the numbers. Drs. Fauci, Birx, and the federal Surgeon General have all publicly stated and reversed again on the bad decisions for requiring masks, including minimal to zero benefit, false sense of security, and in fact, just virtue signaling. All of the above doctors, plus the WHO and the CDC, are on public record as not really knowing whether this virus is actually spread through the air or on surfaces, and have issued contradictory statements. This indicates wearing masks is a farce. The South Carolina Health Department website, as of last night, records Beaufort County has had 1,148 cases of COVID-19 and 18 deaths from almost the last 5 months. Bluffton and Hilton Head Island are each less than 1/3 of that number. As far as the South Carolina state record shows, all but 2 of the deaths in the county were over 65 years old and all had multiple morbidities. There are currently 1,047 sick people hospitalized in the whole state and almost 5 million people. Cases is the wrong metric. Hospitalization and death are the correct metric to control. Beaufort has 9 out of 100,000 deaths. This is not a pandemic that is any worse than any previous year or disease in the recorded history of Beaufort County. Testing has escalated in the last 2 months, which is why cases are rising. However, we have never tested or counted cases in any previous years, any of the previous supposed pandemics like H1N1 or previous SARS or the coronavirus that have been around for decades. Masks are not helpful. Masks are dehumanizing. Masks provide a false sense of any safety. We cannot sanitize the county. This is a political public mind control exercise.
Kim, with that one.
Okay. Michael Talmadge, 42 Daffodil Farm Road, Bluffton. No mask. Creating an ordinance only to make people feel more comfortable from a homemade uncertified piece of fabric is frivolous. Kelly Knight, 16 Baywood Drive, Bluffton. New England Journal of Medicine 5/21/20 and other scientific research has demonstrated that wearing masks other than fitted medical grade quality do little to protect self and others from COVID-19. WHO has determined that asymptomatic do not transmit the virus. Thus, if you are going to compel mask wearing, it should be on those who are symptomatic. Those with COVID-19 should quarantine. Those who are asymptomatic or free of the virus should be left alone with no mandated mask wearing. Please consider these facts when determining whether to impose useless requirements on the vast majority of the residents of Bluffton. Thank you. Oh, just FYI, the rate of increase of cumulative deaths from COVID-19 beginning 5/1/20 in South Carolina is 278%, with no mandatory mask wearing. In a random sample of 7 of the 16 states mandating mask wearing, the same rate of increase, 277%. Masks do little to stop the spread. Shannon Roper, 257 Pinecrest Circle. We do not need a mask ordinance. I'm not sure why everyone cannot see the number of cases is going up because more people are being tested. I'm getting the antibody test today because I was sick back in April. I read that if the test comes back positive, I will be added to the positive case count, even though I'm not an active case, thus driving up the number of new cases. A mask ordinance will hurt businesses in Bluffton, as I and many other people will simply take our shopping and dining dollars to Hardyville. I urge you not to trample on my rights. Allow people to protect themselves without the government getting involved. Christine Taylor, 231 Montauk Avenue, Bluffton. Before, I feel like the curve was kept down by social distancing and wearing masks. I still put on my mask when I enter a store and when I'm required to wear a mask at work. With everything open, I believe the added protection cannot hurt. If you cannot be 6 feet apart, please wear a mask. Meg Engler, 75 Regent Avenue, Bluffton. Please pass a comprehensive mask ordinance that requires all employees, employers, and customers to wear masks in any public building and gathering where 6 feet outdoor distancing isn't possible. We have to do this together and have to try to slow this down. I want to get back to work in person someday. Ruth Gardner, 609 Argent Way, Bluffton. Please vote to require people to wear masks in public with their noses covered, especially in buildings. Thank you for keeping us safe. Carol Kinsey, 9 7th Avenue, Bluffton. I'm in favor of making masks mandatory, but what about restaurants and bars? It's not really possible to wear them in either location. So would that mean another possible shutdown? I don't think that would be a bad idea. Marge Garvey, 196 Hampton Circle, Bluffton. Please mandate masks. Though I don't live in the town, I do all of my shopping there. I wear a mask to protect others, and I want the same courtesy extended to me. Trudy Nelson, 6 Traymore Place, Bluffton. Requiring face masks only in grocery stores and pharmacies is not enough. It's like putting on a Band-Aid with adhesive only on one side. Please follow the same requirements that Hilton Head has passed. If not, you are hoping tourists will come to Bluffton to eat and shop because the city wants their dollars over the health of the residents. Kathleen Watkins, Bluffton. As a 20-year resident of Bluffton and as an essential employee at Kroger in Bluffton, I'm writing to ask you that Mayor Salka and the town council pass a serious mask ordinance that will protect employees as well as customers. Everyone needs to wear a mask at all times when in public places. This is not about money or politics. This is about doing everything possible to control this very serious health crisis and to keep everyone safe. Please make it mandatory for everyone to wear a mask in all public places when social distancing is not possible. Sue Newman, 52 Sugar Maple Street, Bluffton. I wish for the town not to make it mandatory to wear masks at public places. Please leave it for businesses to decide how they wish to address this matter. Patricia Paytas, 195 Hampton Circle. We need to make the use of masks mandatory in this area to help control the spread of COVID-19. So many people are following the guidelines. However, an equal number aren't, which causes the number of cases to rise. Please legislate this as Hilton Head has done. Kay Launer, 2 Water Tupelo Street, Bluffton. Please follow suit with the Hilton Head regarding face masks. This virus will continue to spread unless people take it seriously and follow protective guidelines. It is imperative to wear face masks to reduce transmission. This is not a political issue. This is a common sense survival issue. Make the right decision, please. Ann Cummings, 119 Spring Beauty Drive, Bluffton. I feel strongly that everyone should be required to wear face masks when in stores or restaurants and when not maintaining social distancing outside. Without this requirement, the COVID-19 virus will keep spreading out of control until it can't be controlled. People of all ages have just thrown caution to the wind and are not following guidelines, and so now it's time to make them mandatory with fines if failure to comply. Norma Gorley, 69 Plymouth Lane. We need to lick this. Please mandate wearing masks. Meg Engler, Westbury Park, Bluffton. Please pass a comprehensive mask ordinance that requires all employees, employers, and customers to wear masks in any public building and gathering where 6 feet outdoor distancing isn't possible. We have to do this together and have to try to slow this down. I want to get back to work in person someday. Tim Morrison, 601 Argent Way, Bluffton. As I travel through our community, I see more and more vehicles from out of state. The vast majority are New York, New Jersey, Ohio, Illinois, Pennsylvania, all states with high infection rates of COVID-19. What is disturbing to me is that I watch these people leave their vehicles and go into stores with their children, and no one has on masks. They are on holiday and they don't care if they spread the disease. Where are our leaders, the people we elect, who will stand up and stop this? Ironically, the states whose people are invading us have declared a 14-day quarantine for visitors who we allow their citizens to have free reign of our communities. Where's the leadership and courage to say enough? We need leaders, real leaders, who are protecting our health and not cowards. Where are you? Please stand up, be bold, and do what you need to do. Most importantly, please protect us from the invaders. Marianne Lycala, 10 Sanders Court, Bluffton. This is a necessity. Laura Ferguson, 16 Golden Eagle Drive. Yes to all individuals required to wear face coverings in all commercial businesses, establishments equal to the request on Hilton Head Island. Mark Trensky, 357 Rolling Marsh Lane, Bluffton. Vote no for masks. I will not wear a mask. I hope dimes are given to individuals that are not wearing them correctly if this is passed. They don't belong under the nose, covering your chin, or hanging off one ear. Also, when a mask is recommended because of an outbreak and people want their mask to match their clothing or have a statement, it is no longer about an outbreak. Judith Ponder, 82 3rd Avenue, Bluffton. Please vote for approval of masks being worn to protect our residents, including yourself. Teresa Quirk, 470 Colonel Thomas Hayward Road, Bluffton. Please make the wearing of masks mandatory. David Brune, 250 Pinnacle Shores Drive, Bluffton. Please make mask wearing in public mandatory. This will allow me to enjoy the outdoors shared amenities as well. I have to stay home as most people appear to think that being outside that it's okay to be unmasked when it's not. You get to choose. It's not when you get too close or are downwind from me. Patty Smith, 8 Knotweed Court, Bluffton. I'm hoping that the decision will be mandatory masks. Kathy and Ken Linder, 17 White Bark Lane, Bluffton. We support any Bluffton, I think that's supposed to say any ordinance in Bluffton, in favor of mandatory masks. Sandra Miller, 206 Hampton Circle, Bluffton. Masks should be made mandatory to control COVID-19 in our fine town of Bluffton. Joan Cowan, 22 Thomas B. Drive, Sun City. Please mandate masks in Bluffton. It will save lives and it is the socially responsible thing to do. We need to take care of each other. Teresa Graves, 15 Maple Court, Bluffton. We can no longer wait for people to act responsibly on their own. They're not wearing masks, and it is now time to mandate the wearing of masks in public to protect our population. Please vote for face masks. Sherry Underwood, 27 White Bark Lane, Bluffton. Please pass a mask ordinance. We need to reduce the number of COVID-19 cases. Doreen Cubby, 95 Coburn Drive West, Bluffton. Please make masks mandatory in all indoor spaces in stores in Bluffton. Beth Mitchell, 124 9th Avenue. I do feel in the current state of the pandemic, if someone enters a public building, a mask needs to be required. Legally, businesses currently cannot force someone to wear a mask, only ask them to leave and make a scene. This is putting working citizens in a precarious position when consumers ignore signage and friendly requests. Consumers with negative opinions of the pandemic are also often the ones disregarding public health and the 6-foot social distancing in my experience. Even customers who with masks are forgetting to stay 6 feet away. Businesses who have already suffered greatly can only do so much to circulate air, maintain cleanliness with scarce supplies, and continue to change procedure to help their employees feel safe while continuing to conduct business. A mask inside businesses will relieve so much anxiety for other consumers trying to patronize the same establishment and for the employees trying to work and stay safe. All businesses have been exponentially affected by the pandemic. The stress of protecting their employees and consumers' health while trying not to lose business due to consumer opinion needs to be taken off their plate. This is not politics. This is about public health and economic recovery. Employees should not have to risk their health to keep their job. This virus is very real, and there's now 500,000 deaths to prove this throughout the world. Yes, testing has improved. Yes, the hospitals are prepared. Yes, most will survive. But most families have suffered financial loss, and businesses have absolutely suffered. And if too many employees catch it, the businesses suffer more because they have too many employees and will have to cease operations while their team recovers. The American Lung Association and many respected organizations state factually that the risk to one's health with a mask is faint if even possible. A doctor's note for those with legitimate respiratory problems relieves all citizens who cannot wear a mask. Throughout the world, mask wearing has been accepted and proven effective. We as a community desperately need to take this step to protect our fellow citizens, our economy, and our reputation as a caring, friendly society. Ruth Brenner, 16 Don Scott Court. Please make our community safer. Require masks in restaurants, stores, drugstores, Now, save lives. Kay Long, 12 Sanders Court, Bluffton. Since the COVID-19 cases are increasing, it behooves the city of Bluffton to make mandatory the wearing of masks in a public building and inside restaurants. Irene Reed, 1 Buffane Drive, Bluffton. Please, for everyone's health, we need an ordinance that everyone in Bluffton wear a mask. If it's mandatory, people will do it. They are like children. They do as much as they can get away with. Sherry Lee, 20 Dawn Sky Court. Please vote to require masks as Hilton Head and Beaufort did. We need to save lives. Chris Teza, 4 Anchor Court Cove, Bluffton. I do not want a mandatory mask ordinance. It is unnecessary and anti-constitutional. People can be responsible for themselves. We don't need government overreach. The rise in cases is normal to the reopening of the state and being handled with treatment that we didn't have before. Deaths are 90% lower than earlier in this pandemic. Exposure is necessary to build immunity. People can determine whether or not to go out if they are vulnerable and if they can choose to wear a mask on their own. Suggestions and advice is all we need, so no mandatory mask ordinance is wanted. Kathleen Cronin, 2225 Blakers Boulevard, Bluffton. I fully support passing a mask requirement in Bluffton retail shops, restaurants, and other public places, indoor public places to help curb the spread of COVID-19. Charles Velasquez, 18 Stable Gate, Hilton Head. I strongly urge the passage of this ordinance. It may not have been necessary 2 months ago. It is critically essential now. The numbers tell the story. South Carolina is on the national news for all the wrong reasons, with its COVID cases skyrocketing. And the Bluffton 29910 area has the most cases in the county. It's not a personal right or a constitutional issue. It's a health issue. A visit to the promenade any evening of the week is all one needs to see. People with total disregard for anyone but themselves, putting others at risk. Let's not wait until Bluffton becomes another Myrtle Beach and is sullied with the reputation of COVID-19 hotspot. This step should not be taken lightly. It should be enacted only because social distancing isn't being adhered to and because more measures are needed. It's time for action. Follow the lead of Hilton Head Council. Our health and our lives are at stake. Julia Parrish, 715 Palmdale Lane. I support the mandatory wearing of masks in Bluffton public places. Caroline Taylor, 440 Gardner Circle, Bluffton. Please consider passing a stringent mask ordinance to require masks in all public places. Our town is in danger with everyone, especially visitors, doing as they please. Masks can help prevent the spread of COVID drastically. Please keep your citizens, children, and the vulnerable safe by passing an ordinance requiring masks in all public places and for all employees in public places. Thank you. Jacqueline Fitzgerald, 42 Bar Mill Lane, Bluffton. I'm a Bluffton, South Carolina resident and an RN of 30 years and a certified case manager for 10 years. I'm writing to ask you to consider medical criteria regarding masks and to consider not succumbing to pressure and nonsense. And hopefully to try to understand that we are not in control and cannot control everything in nature. Please read OSHA guidelines on all types of masks. Very accurate. This is a respiratory virus such as a flu and cold, and we have never reacted this way. We have to stop the unhealthy and unhelpful ways we are stopping our immune systems. We have to exist with this like we do other respiratory viruses. Those who need protected, elderly and sick need to wear masks to try to eliminate chances of catching the virus. You should never mask healthy and vibrant people. We need to protect the vulnerable and mostly nursing home residents. Please use common sense and see that we cannot continue this cycle and prolong the inevitable. We cannot destroy this country further and kill more people by suicide, abuse, etc. that this type of reaction can cause. We need hand washing and outdoors. We need to be mindful of personal space, as in 3 feet. We need to be mindful of coughing and sneezing and touching our faces. Same old and gold rules we learned a long time ago. Michelle and Jim Frazier, 30 Stony Court, Bluffton. Please pass a face mask ordinance. Both South Carolina and Bluffton are in crisis. Yvonne Tidwell, 18 Pioneer Point, Bluffton. Please do not approve the bill to make masks mandatory. We do not believe it is necessary. Most people at the grocery store already wear masks anyways. It should be a person's choice whether they choose to wear one or not. Heidi Hennenkamp, Bluffton. I'm not sure how this works and I'm home with my 5 little ones, but I do know I need to attempt to get my voice heard in the mandatory mask vote today. I understand many citizens and town leaders believe the COVID numbers are rising and there's different opinions on every side. I understand there's a lot of fear in these days and pressure to listen to government powers. However, I believe with every ounce of my mother instinct that's allowing this vote to pass through would be detrimental to my children and the future of our town. This cannot and should not pass. The numbers are never going to come down as long as testing sites are open. The numbers do not reflect any actual threat or death rate. There is no threat. Are we to be required to wear masks for the rest of our lives? Are we to live in fear until the day we die? Are we to give in to a dictatorship and expose our children to this way of life? As a mom with 5 children, all under the age of 7 years old, I cannot comprehend a future for these sweet ones where they see mask-wearing robots all around town. They cannot see people smiling behind masks. They cannot breathe behind the masks. Please, God, have mercy, if not on our country, then on our town. Let this madness stop. Let truth come forth. Please, I beg you, hear my mother's heart cry and put an end to this never-ending nightmare. Tova Billabos, 563 Mill Street, Bluffton. I'd like to encourage a vote against a mask ordinance for Bluffton. Please let people decide what is best for their own health. Johnny Hamlin, Bluffton. I know that there will be a vote on the mandatory masks here in Bluffton this afternoon, and I'd like to put my 2 cents in. I do not think that masks should be mandatory. If businesses want to do so, then I completely understand, but I do feel like I should be forced to do so. I have complied when asked, but I do not want to be forced. Thank you for your time. Chris Short, 157 Pinecrest Drive, Bluffton. Mayor Solka and council members, while I fully understand the severity of COVID-19 and the need to take precautions like limiting persons in a building, social distancing, etc., I strongly feel that telling the public how they must dress and what they must wear to be able to live freely crosses a line that no government should cross. Despite all the hand-wringing, number hawking, and scare tactics of the media, especially social media users, activities like grocery shopping are low risk. The CDC states that close contact, high-risk interactions occur when an infected person spends at least 15 minutes in close proximity, less than 6 feet apart, of another person. I've shopped at the same Publix in Bluffton for almost 11 years. I cannot recall when I've had an interaction with anyone that came close to matching that description. Never unless I stopped to have a conversation with an employee I've come to know or a friend I've bumped into. If you're wearing a mask to protect your health, my wearing a mask provides minimal risk reduction. If you want to mandate masks to be worn in confined spaces like restaurants, why not just mandate a lower occupancy percentage? There's a loophole in the Hilton Head ordinance that exempts people who are eating and drinking, which is an environment where people are both close together, even with mandated spacing and indoors. How is that less risky than going to a grocery store? I follow social distancing guidelines. I shop when it's later in the day and feel less crowded. I avoid stores like Home Depot unless absolutely necessary. Don't have people over and keep my distance from anyone. I would have less issues with having my rights infringed, and that's what it is. If I felt I could trust government to reverse course expeditiously. However, I'm firmly convinced that this ordinance, once enacted, will be with us until a vaccine is found. I also question government's willingness to stop there. What's next? Please vote no. Earl Lockhart, 19 Sugar Maple Lane, Bluffton. Please pass a law about wearing masks that is consistent with the rest of Beaufort County. And lastly, Karen Bartlett, 3 Orchard Lane, Bluffton. Please vote yes for people in Bluffton to be required to wear masks in public businesses. And that
Kim, thank you. I know that was a lot. I am sure people watching didn't understand the reason behind all those, but that's everyone's freedom to speak at public comment. They have 3 minutes or less to speak their piece. And I appreciate, and if you get any others after the 2-hour deadline, if you would just pass them forward to us, we'll read them as well.
Of course.
Public comment is over. Let me get back to the agenda. We're moving on to the agenda item we're here for, and if you could, there it is. And that's the consideration of an emergency ordinance of the town of Bluffton requiring individuals to wear face coverings in the light of the COVID-19 pandemic and matters related thereto and severability. And Mr. Marshall, you are up. How are you today?
Good afternoon. I'm well, Mayor. How are you?
I'm good.
Well, we have a hot topic in front of us. I'm here today to present you with an ordinance for consideration. It's an emergency ordinance to require face coverings in certain situations. Just a little background for you. You know, the number of cases is continuing to go up, especially within the vicinity of the Bluffton area. It's kind of a hotbed right now. At the time we put this ordinance together, we had emergency ordinances were already approved in Greenville, Columbia, Charleston, Beaufort, and the town of Hilton Head Island. Since then, monitoring the municipal association listserv, we have literally dozens of other municipalities that are considering the same, and probably at least a half a dozen to a dozen that have already passed ordinances of their own with regard to face coverings. And we're going to look at some of those a little later on in the presentation, but first I would like to show you the ordinance that we have proposed for you to consider as a starting point for the conversation. So one of the issues early on in this discussion of wearing masks is whether it was actually allowable for local jurisdictions to prescribe the wear of masks, to require that of their citizens. Attorney General Alan Wilson issued a statement on June 24th last week that answered that question for many of us. And I just have his statement on the screen there for you to take a look at. But basically, the answer to whether a city can lawfully pass this type of ordinance is yes, according to Attorney General Wilson. So the emergency ordinance we have for you today is modeled after the City of Greenville's ordinance. And in the City of Greenville's ordinance and in the ordinance we have for you today to consider, it requires all persons that are entering a pharmacy or a grocery store to have a face covering. It also requires employees of restaurants, retail stores, salons, barbershops, grocery stores, and pharmacies to also have face coverings when dealing with the public. Exemptions would include individuals who, because of their age or some other health condition, they are unable to safely put on or remove a face covering by themselves. So if they are unable to do that without the assistance of others, then they are exempt from having to wear a face mask or face covering, I should say. Here is what is in the ordinance. First, we have defined some terms. We defined what a face covering is. That's a pretty universal definition across all the ordinances that we find. It's basically a cloth covering of some type, cloth or paper covering that covers the mouth and the nose area at the same time. Our ordinance also defines person with regard to who is responsible for a business establishment, and also defines what a grocery store is and what a grocery store is not. It lays out penalties. The penalty for violating this emergency ordinance would be a civil infraction, and it would be a $50 fine payable through the municipal court. However, that is kind of a last resort. It's not kind of a last resort, it is a last resort. The ultimate goal is to bring the person into compliance or business into compliance before ever issuing a citation. So Captain Chandler, I'm going to throw this part over to you. He's going to discuss the compliance portion. It's basically a 4-step process. And Scott, if you would, could you just step counsel through this?
Sure, absolutely. Just kind of reiterate what Mr. Marshall said. Our goal here is to gain compliance through education. Our goal is not to write tickets to people. We thought of kind of a 4-step process. Maybe the first step would be an email to a business if we find that they're violating the ordinance. Reference a second complaint. We would visit them in person, give them a verbal warning. If there's a third complaint, we would actually give a written warning. And then finally, if they still are violating the ordinance, then a ticket would be issued to that person. So there's several steps you have to go through before even a ticket is issued. So our goal here is education.
Thank you, Captain.
Yes, sir.
So just as a reminder, any emergency ordinance requires 2/3 majority vote and a single reading to pass. For our council, that means we would need at least 4 affirmative votes in order to pass this emergency ordinance. If it's passed as written, it would be effective at 12 noon tomorrow, July 1, 2020. It terminates upon being rescinded by a subsequent action of council or 61 days after enactment, which would actually be August 31st, whichever of those dates is sooner. So the next steps in this process would be a public information campaign to educate the public and the business community on what the requirement for face coverings consists of. And we would use a media release, of course, social media blitz on all of our social media platforms. Hopefully we could get it included in your mayor's article, Mayor, to help educate because you have a strong following there. And then we would distribute signage and information graphics as attachments to an electronic letter that we would send to all of our business license holders in the town that this ordinance would apply to. Some examples of that signage are here. This is what we would provide. Or something akin to it. If we should change the parameters of this ordinance, of course, we would change the signage to match. And as promised, here is a comparison of some other localities and what they are requiring in the emergency ordinances that they have passed. As you can see, we've got Greenville, Columbia, Charleston, City of Beaufort, Mount Pleasant, Hilton Head Island, Town of Bluffton as presented. That's the one I just spoke to you about that we're presenting for your consideration today. And the Municipal Association of South Carolina Model Ordinance. And I simply have a breakdown here of where masks are required and by whom, whether businesses are required to post signage or not, whether the infractions are considered civil or criminal, and then what the penalties are under the emergency ordinance for that locality.
Scott, before you leave that slide, Council Member Wood asked about the Beaufort ordinance, and I was able to pull it up and compare it to Beaufort. And Dan, it's identical, except it's a criminal and it's $100 fine. So I did want you to know, looking at the two quickly, they align up number to number. Okay, Scott, I just wanted to add that.
Not a problem, Mayor. If you need me to bring any of those slides back up, I'll be happy to do so.
Sorry.
Also be happy to put our ordinance on the screen if we need that as well.
Could you put our ordinance on the screen unless somebody wants something else, and maybe have that diagram, that spreadsheet available? I'll open it up to questions. Does anyone want to go first? I see Dan and Bridget on my screen. I see Larry and Fred. Anybody have questions of this? Larry, you want to start, or y'all just raise your hand? I have all of you on the screen now.
Yes, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, Larry.
Scott, if you could go back to the beginning
All right.
of the Greenville ordinance that we're.
All right. Let me share my screen again here. Is this what you were after, Councilman?
Yeah. Not the signs, the one before that. Yeah, could you make that a little bigger? I can't see it now. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
I'll start this conversation by saying all persons entering a grocery store, pharmacy, or town building or town indoor facility. In other words, is that saying that any business that is open to the public or town-owned facility? I'm asking this so I can get clarification.
You're looking at the city of Greenville's, all persons entering grocery store, pharmacy, or town building or town indoor facility. Yes, it's any grocery store, any pharmacy, and any town-owned building or town-owned indoor facility.
Okay, so that's all persons. Under that, it says employees of restaurants, retail establishments, salons, grocery stores, and pharmacies.
Yes.
Is that saying that only the employees wear masks, or is that anyone, like the top line says, all persons entering? I'm trying to get clarification in my head.
Right. The top line speaks to the people who are consumers entering the establishments. And if they enter a grocery store or a pharmacy, or if they enter, for example, the town hall or the city hall in the city of Greenville, then they're required to wear a face covering. On the other hand, employees of all restaurants, all retail establishments, salons, grocery stores, and pharmacies must wear a face covering. So you're looking at a scenario where a customer could walk into a retail establishment under the Greenville model and not necessarily be required to wear a face covering, but the employee at that establishment would be required to wear a face covering.
That was my question. Just trying to clarify that the way it's written there.
Okay.
So patrons of restaurants, retail establishments, salons, and grocery stores and pharmacies, in the second paragraph, it says they don't have to, so to speak, only employees. Or is it saying that all persons entering grocery store, pharmacies, or town buildings or town indoor facility? Everybody's got to wear one. It's what I'm trying to get.
Yeah, the primary difference here is that when a consumer enters a grocery store or a pharmacy, and the rationale, as I understand it, behind this limitation is that a grocery store and a pharmacy are two locations where the consumer does not have the option not to go there. In other words, there are products within that establishment that are basic needs for survival. They need medication, they need food, etc. While walking into the other types of establishments are somewhat discretionary. If that helps.
Well, I'm trying to figure out why there's two differences in a grocery store, or pharmacy, or a town building.
Can I jump in just looking at all of them, Larry? It looks like all the ordinances have a paragraph relating to employees, and then they have a paragraph relating to the consumer. And I guess Greenville wanted to focus on grocery stores, pharmacies, and town properties, where the town of Hilton Head just wanted to do a blanket ordinance over all commercial buildings for the consumer. Does that help? Or
Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to get it straight in my mind. I'm not knocking it or endorsing it. I'm wondering why it's written like that, because one says employees of restaurants and retail establishments, and the other one says all persons entering just those few, the pharmacy or town building or grocery store. So what my question is are all patrons that enter a restaurant or retail establishment or salon required to wear face masks?
The way that's worded, the answer is no. All patrons who enter grocery stores and pharmacies or a town building or town indoor facility are required to wear face coverings.
Okay.
And employees of all of the other establishments listed in the second bullet are required to wear face coverings. Does that help?
Yeah, that I just didn't get that.
Okay.
That's all I have for this moment.
okay, let me know if you have anything else. I see Bridget next, but does Fred or Dan want to have any questions?
I will, but let Bridget go.
Bridget, you want to go? You want Dan to go?
Is this a time for comments? Because I didn't really have a question.
Well, comments or questions on any of it, whatever you want.
Okay, sure. Well, first I just want to address that, I hear the frustrations, I understand the concerns that a lot of people have. Also, though, want to talk about the responsibility that we all have, not as government officials, but just to one another. And so we have to be responsible with our words. So those who are invoking that this is a Democrat and this is a Republican issue and that it's a violation of their constitutional rights, things like that, you know, we are not in violation of any of that. This is not a party issue. It comes down to making sure that we have protections in place to support our residents and citizens who are our most vulnerable. And so, you know, to see that we have so many businesses who are shutting down and to see that there are a lot of employees who are following the protocols of having the mask and protections, but are still left, you know, open to those who are coming in without that. We want to be respectful here of everyone. But my only concern was that if we're considering an ordinance, I think in order to have a point of continuity here and to be able to enforce it, it should not just be relocated to grocery stores and pharmacies. It should be a consideration here for all businesses, all commercial businesses. So I saw in section 2 where it talks about that, but it's only broken down for grocery stores and pharmacies. I wanted to know if consideration could be given to allow more continuity there for our officers and to be able to have protections to those other businesses as well.
So just so I can write this down, Bridget, when we summarize your section 2, where it talks about requirements, you
Right,
are
and it lists.
suggesting B, where it says all restaurants, retail stores, salons, barbershops, grocery stores, and pharmacies to be part of the area where the consumer goes into, because it already talks about the actual business.
Yeah, Mayor, could we get our ordinance on the screen instead of the the
Yeah.
comparison of all the other ones,
Right.
please?
Scott, can you do that, please?
Yeah, let
I
me.
have it on my laptop because I was trying to be able to read it.
I came outside because the baby was fussing.
The only thing, let's see,
Because when you look at B, Lisa, it says that the employees, I'm saying if we're looking at the requirements of it, we shouldn't be picking and choosing which commercial businesses or which places should have the employees as well as the public wearing the mask. It should be more, I said to have that continuity there, to be more inclusive, should be all commercial establishments servicing the public and not just look like it's only for one place and not the other. Because if you go down to section 2, it says that only employees of restaurants and retail stores, what have you, have to do it. But for grocery stores and pharmacies, it's the employees and the public.
I think
Right.
I got what you were-
Yeah, that
Can
was
you-
kind of my question too, Bridget. I agree with you on that. And at the beginning, where with the comparison from Greenville's ordinance, do the town employees have to wear a face mask? It says all persons entering town-owned property, but does that mean that all town employees are required as well as restaurants and pharmacies and all that? The way it's worded, it's a little confusing.
I think those are things we're talking about now, Larry. I mean, if it's something we want to add, and I'm going back to what I was told Sheriff Tanner suggested to Hilton Head, and that's third party. He was asking that all the ordinance are similar.
Sure.
For enforcement. And so I'm looking at I guess I should look at the Hilton Head ordinance to see what that means. But I think we all can I think we have to practice what we preach if this passes, that town employees, if they're engaged with the public, must wear a mask. I think that.
Yeah, this is Fred.
Yes, Fred.
Let's not look at anybody else. Let's look at Bluffton right now. I don't care what the others are doing. Let's do what's best for Bluffton.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We're going by Greenville right now, so we're looking at somebody. But but there's also something to look at, which is Hilton Head and Beaufort. I
know, but for the sake of time and inconvenience, let's just deal with what we want for Bluffton. We already got
Okay.
a model. We got an MUSC model. I mean, Municipal Association model. We have a Charleston model. We have a Hilton Head. We have the town of Beaufort, city of Beaufort. Let's just deal with Bluffton right now.
Okay, got it. Can I ask, while we hear all this, Terry, are you taking notes on these requests so we can put it all down and discuss something different from what we're seeing? Because what we're seeing is a very simple ordinance that Greenville passed that we are
Yes, I
asking
am.
to look at. Okay.
Mayor, can you hear me okay, Mayor?
I can.
Okay, and Mayor and Council, I understand Councilman Hamilton's let's talk about Bluffton. The biggest difference right now, and I think it goes to what Councilwoman Frazier was talking about, is the ordinance that you have before you, the draft, is limited to grocery stores and pharmacies as far as customers having to wear masks going into. The proposed ordinance from Beaufort County, the Hilton Head ordinance that's passed, and the city of Beaufort ordinance that has passed, all of them say anybody going into any public business, any place where the public can go, from a consumer perspective, has to wear a mask. So that is the difference that I think that y'all are talking about now. And the question is does Bluffton want to have a more comprehensive mask ordinance involving all businesses, or just customers going into grocery stores and pharmacies? And I think that's the precise question for the five of you to kick around.
Mayor,
Yes, sir. Dan, Mr. Wood.
yes, I understood what Terry made clear. I understood Bridget when she said it. I concur with Bridget's analysis. I prefer one of the other two versus the Greenville myself, because it's a little convoluted to me. We're saying we want to make a difference by insisting that masks are utilized to take down the, to hopefully eliminate some of the virus, but yet there's so much leniency there with so many other businesses. So I'm more in the camp of what I heard from Bridget regarding Hilton Head or Beaufort. Now, one place that I'm confused, I was trying to understand the enforcement aspects, and I'm glad that our chief went through that today. I wish we'd have been able to kick that sooner, but I like the enforcement methodology we came up with. But when you read Beaufort's, all three have a mixture of the owner of a business helping implement the mandate to wear the mask with their employees. The Beaufort ordinance, it appeared to me that the town had some enforcement responsibilities also, but I did not see that in the Hilton Head ordinance. I wasn't clear on what their enforcement issue was. It appeared that they want business owners to do some stuff, but I didn't see where the town actually had any enforcement listed. I may have missed it.
Who has an answer for Mr. Wood?
Councilman Wood, this is Terry. The Hilton Head ordinance simply makes it a criminal misdemeanor, which would leave the enforcement to the Beaufort County Sheriff's Department, since Hilton Head does not have its own police department. That is all they really talked about in there. There are some differences with some of the other ordinances, but that's Hilton Head did not specify anything other than it is a crime and it's a misdemeanor. So it would go through the magistrate's court since they no longer have their own municipal court.
And while you're listening and talking, so if you have a patron refuse to comply with an ordinance in a retail store, grocery store, doesn't matter, then what?
Well, some of these ordinances address that, and some of them are silent. The ordinance, in my opinion, that does the best job of addressing that precise issue is the proposed Beaufort County ordinance, which indicates that a business owner has the right to decline entry to someone who will not mask and wants to come in their facility. That appears to be the one of the few ordinances that has that specific criteria put in there that allows a business owner to say, I'm sorry, but you cannot come in here if you do not have a mask. And that's part of the county proposed ordinance.
Thank you.
Is that, so you were talking about the two, it sounds 1, 2, I heard Larry say, I'm not sure how he felt about the ordinance, but he did agree with Bridget. So we all are thinking it needs to be more not so separate the way the original draft, a little bit more like the Beaufort one. Do we put that, do you want to discuss putting that ability for a business owner to say that, which I guess they can anyway. They don't need us to tell them to say it. Should we put that in our ordinance?
Mayor, this is Mark Verlano. I would suggest putting that in our ordinance. It's definitely something that we would ask for. Scott Marshall, Chief Chandler, and myself talked today that what we would ask is that the business owner partner with us to help us not only enforce but implement the mask requirements, the face covering requirements. We could absolutely add it into the ordinance so that it's a lot more clear.
Just a question while others are thinking. In all the ordinances except the one we're looking at, it also talks about education and voluntary compliance are the desired means of enforcement. And I know Captain Chandler discussed it, but it's not in the current one we're looking at. Should we have that written in there? Or is it just assumed?
Well,
It's actually written in there to some degree already in our ordinance.
I didn't see it. So if you'll tell me where.
I'm trying to find it for you.
while Scott's looking for that, it's also in our slide presentation where we've got a pretty specific policy in place. So would ask that. Go ahead, Scott.
It's there in section 3B. The foregoing notwithstanding, every effort shall be made to bring the business into voluntary compliance with the terms of this ordinance prior to the issuance of any citation.
Okay. Perfect.
There are some items, Mayor, if I may say, there are the items in the Beaufort County ordinance that speak to really a compliance action if somebody doesn't comply or ignores the ordinance long term. You know, what we're trying to say is that we're going to work with folks to bring it into compliance. We have a process. It's education based on the front end. It's enforcement based on the back end. We have a municipal code that's in place to address a business that refuses to handle or refuses or ignores us, refuses to listen, comply, or ignores us. Whether those provisions get put into this code or not, we do have certain mechanisms in place in our municipal code to address. We try to keep the ordinance simple and not put a whole bunch of language in there, but it sounds like perhaps we should include the language so that this particular code of laws adopted as an emergency ordinance are very clear. We're okay with that.
And I believe, Mark, that this particular section speaks to what you were just talking about.
Right. There we go.
Okay. Any thoughts, Fred? You said you want to be a Bluffton ordinance. Where are you? What is it that you want to add or take away from what we were given in our packet?
Well, I'm in agreement that it should be uniform across the board, so it's a lot easier to facilitate when you come to going from one business to another. Officers can be on one accord, or business can be on one accord. The customers as well as the employees all understand the same language. That takes away a lot of the confusion and I think the only thing that's different now is how long are we going to be under this emergency ordinance.
Okay. The presentation is a 60-day, which is the emergency standard. unless we decide as a group to stop it beforehand or on the 61st day, it will expire like our state of emergency. So what did you say, August what?
It would expire at the end of August.
So currently it'll expire at the end of August unless we come back together to
Yes,
stop.
ma'am, unless you rescind it by some formal action.
I have a question on that, Scott.
Yes,
So we're operating under a state of emergency, but this proposed ordinance is separate, totally separate from what falls under the state of emergency. In other words, if the state of emergency expires in the middle of July, which is supposed to do, that doesn't preempt anything with this proposed ordinance, does it?
no, this ordinance stands alone. It's related to the same event that caused the state of emergency that you're in. But this emergency ordinance is a standalone ordinance. And Terry, if I'm wrong, please correct me on that.
You are correct, Scott.
Mhm. So we'll be working under two emergency ordinances of some sort. The state of emergency, which we'll discuss at the July meeting about extending, but whether we extend that or not, this would be in effect for 60 days from the date we pass it or the date we start. When would this go into effect?
As written, it would go into effect noon tomorrow on July.
Okay. Questions or
Scott,
discussion?
Mayor, if I could have Scott, if you would go back to section 2, please.
Certainly.
And as you can see here, Mayor and Council, the way this was patterned off Greenville. And this section A is limited to just grocery stores or pharmacies. The flip side of that is language as follows. All persons entering any building open to the public in the county or in the town, in the town, must wear a face covering while inside the building. So that, I think that language there in place of A would at least accomplish what Councilwoman Frazier, I think Mr. Wood and Mr. Hamilton all mentioned. So, you know, if you want to focus on where you want to tweak this draft, it would be in section 2A. And we would just say, all persons entering any building open to the public in the town must wear a face covering while inside the building. That would get you there. That's the precise language from the draft that the county plans on considering tomorrow. The Hilton Head language is, bear with me.
Scott, you've taken get back down to where we were.
Yeah, that's
Thank
right. Yeah. I brought this up in case we want to make the changes on the fly as you discuss them.
I'm confused. What was the,
I brought up, Mayor, what I did was I brought up the Word document and I have it in revision mode.
oh, okay.
If you make revisions to it and then vote on it as revised, then you know exactly what you're voting on today.
That makes sense. Okay. Well, before we get into that, and I agree, I think 2A is where we look, and I have a question on B. Council, do you want to focus on this right now? And then let's just run through the ordinance quickly to see if there are any other areas, because I think this is the most important part.
Right. I know for me, I think that's important is to agree on the language that we'd like to see in this ordinance. I think making it as explicit as possible is going to be better in terms of making it easier on establishments and for the public in terms of knowing exactly what the expectations are.
Okay.
And Mayor, while we're talking about this precise section 2, the only other change that we see in other ordinances that involves section 2B, 2B is the employee must wear masks. In the proposal in front of you, it says the employee must wear masks while interacting with the public. A number of the other ordinances from other jurisdictions have that, but they also say or with each other. So if employees are congregating, if they're in close proximity while they are in fact working, and they can't have the 6-foot distance. There are some ordinances that include employee to employee masks. So that might be something else that you all might want to think about. That is in some of the other ordinances that Scott and I have looked at over the last 4 or 5 days.
Thoughts?
Personally, I think that's pushing it too far. I just imagine myself being in the kitchen with 6 or 8 other people over a hot fryer or steamer or whatever it may be, or other businesses also, to not be able to take your mask off and get a couple of minutes fresh air. If you are 6 feet away from the other employee, that should be acceptable. I think we're living in the real world, and I want to make, my biggest concern on all this are those little people who aren't here talking or complaining or agreeing or disagreeing. But I've been in the trenches and worked the trenches, and there are a lot of people who are going to really probably quit working when it's all said and done, because it's their conditions of work are not as good as mine, or maybe y'all's, where you have air conditioning, and computer, and I got a boat with cold air blowing through my face. So I'm trying to agree, but I'm also trying to take care of those people who are not voicing their opinion right now. And we start getting down to people in the kitchen not being able to take their covering off without a fine. I think that's getting a little too big brother for me personally.
I'll jump in for Larry too. I have read the CDC guidelines on restaurants pretty deeply, because we've had some restaurants in our town who are very concerned about when they're not interacting with the public, they're not allowed to wear certain things, or they could catch fire. I mean, we don't want death and destruction over this. So I would be okay keeping it the way B is, in support of that concern. And it is the public we're trying to help at the moment, and I would agree with Larry on that.
I would agree with that, Mayor. I think, again, we're trying to protect everyone. But however, if, for example, in Larry's case and his restaurant's operating, we've already had some restaurants that have had to close again because their employees became infected. That's the risk that particular retail business owner is dealing with, not the rest of us. So I agree with you and Larry on that.
I think we're saying the same things and kind of going around. B is not I don't think B is the issue at all. If kitchen staff, all restaurants are already in compliance with their serve safe training and knowing how to operate in terms of a pandemic, outside of other issues, making sure things are sanitized and that they're up to compliance. I think the issue is in A, is the language that needs to change in terms of where we're going to focus our time and be specific. I think that's what's lacking, because right now it's just grocery stores and pharmacies. There was a mention about restaurants. If we're going to include those things, I think we should make sure that we get the language straight to say things like, yes, there's going to be required in restaurants. However, if the person's sitting down to eat, we certainly don't expect that they're going to be eating or drinking their food with the mask on. I think the need for the explicit language has to come in, not just requiring 1 or 2 places. If we're going to go this route with the ordinance, just making sure that it's uniform to include all commercial businesses that are going to be serving the public. So I just want to make sure that our language is clear in that regard, and knowing that businesses are already operating and doing best practices with their staff, and they should be able to continue to do that. It's more so having the support of the other businesses and establishments in terms of when the public and where the public should be wearing these items.
So I agree. So let's look at paragraph 2A. Can we start writing? I guess we're copying B businesses in the top instead of grocery store and pharmacy. And then isn't it mentioned in here, and I've read so many of them, somewhere it does give the out for people who are in the restaurant, so they're eating, they cannot wear masks. I mean, isn't that in this somewhere that,
That would be under exceptions.
yes, okay, as long as it's in our,
Paragraph here under the requirements to list exceptions.
I'm sorry,
We
Where's
could,
that?
we could list exceptions as item D, for example.
okay.
Exceptions to
We
the,
don't have exceptions in ours.
Joe,
we have them, but they're couched into other paragraphs. They're not explicit.
where does it address that, Scott?
Yeah,
The exceptions right here.
Any persons unable to wear, but that's just for people with medical
yeah.
conditions.
Right.
Exactly. That's what it says. It's not explicit.
That's the only exception.
That's not clear.
Not at all.
Okay, so we need the exemption just as in the county where it talks about the exemption if they're, I mean, gosh.
How can people eat with a face
eating or
mask on?
drinking, right,
Well, as our ordinance is currently drafted, you don't have to have a face mask on to eat. If you're a consumer entering a grocery store or a pharmacy, you have to have a face mask on. If you're a consumer entering a restaurant, you do not have to have a face mask on, but the staff who is serving you must wear a face covering.
Well,
If you want to change it to all persons entering any building open to the public, then that's where we get into listing the exceptions for eating, et cetera, et cetera.
let me say in Beaufort's ordinance on section 4, that's
Mhm.
all covered.
Yeah, that, I was
It's
gonna
almost
say
like
that,
you can cut and paste. And I wanted to point something else out for discussion. They also talk in section 3, says this requirement also applies to all persons providing or utilizing public, talks about commercial, I'm not worried about that. Saying all businesses or employees while interacting with people in outdoor spaces, including but not limited to curbside pickup, delivery, and service calls. I don't know if that's something we want to entertain now. I will say this weekend, I was on a porch in Port Royal and all the staff that came out to serve the porch outdoors all wore a mask. What we've been talking about is indoors.
Great question, Dan.
And frankly, I think a lot of the restaurants that weren't requiring masks indoors or outdoors in nearness to the public have been doing that anyway. I mean, if you go look, that's what you're going to find, because again, they don't want their staff to become infected by us either, because it's an economic thing. So I think that part of number 3, the last sentence, should probably be included.
you have this ordinance because also 4 addresses something I was looking at, children under the age of 2. I mean, that addresses babies. If you take, I mean, I think you can cut and paste the last part of 3 and the whole 4 and put under item D under section 2.
I can't
And-
see that part on my screen.
If Scott would cut and paste it, I think we could see it when he put it up on his screen. He said this was an editable document he put up on us.
Yeah, I don't have the county's ordinance up. I have a printed version in front of me.
Do you want, I mean,
Scott, I'll forward it to you.
Okay.
Mayor, sorry to jump in like that. I'll forward it to Scott. I thought he had Beaufort County.
Hey, Mayor,
I don't have the Word version.
Mayor, you just mentioned something from somewhere about 2-year-olds.
right.
Where did you
It's-
see that?
Well,
That's what-
under the county ordinance says the following individuals are exempt from this ordinance. And that was where you were saying, take that paragraph and just cut and paste it. And it says any person under the age of 2 or who is unable to safely wear a mask due to an age or underlying health condition.
Okay, I may have said Beaufort County. I meant the town of Beaufort, Scott. I apologize. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But I think it's the
Item 4,
same.
3 that I was relating to has to do with the town of Beaufort. And the other thing, the reason I asked you, Mayor, about your 2-year-olds, I mean, I'm not a scientist on this, but I did see an article the other day. somebody recommended 8 years old or somewhere around there, because a parent with a 2, 3, or 4-year-old is having a tantrum is not going to wear it. Their hands are full.
Amen.
Yeah. Well, the 4 under Beaufort just says due to age, period.
Well, and we have the same thing. If you look at section 2C,
We,
any person unable to safely wear a face covering due to age, an underlying health condition, or unable to remove the face covering without assistance is exempt.
Mayor?
Yes.
This is Terry. The exception language in the city of Beaufort is identical to the Beaufort County.
right.
Yeah.
So either, I think we should take that language and cut and paste it in for that section C that we were just talking about.
I do too. But it's not exact, because Beaufort County puts an age, the age of 2. I don't care if the more blanketed
Right.
age makes difference, whatever everybody else wants. So
And,
Yeah,
and
the age of 2 is the difference between the two of them, and it's up to y'all whether you think that's good or not. But
And-
that language, except for the age of 2, is identical.
And Mayor Salka and Council, the reason it was proposed the way Scott outlined is because, I have a 7-year-old, and the difference between 2 years old and 4 years old and trying to wear a face mask in public is hard. So what we proposed is based on age. I think at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is mandate masks to reduce the spread of COVID, but also to use and allow for some judgment with an officer who is an officer or code enforcement officer who is trying to enforce this ordinance. So it's your policy to adopt, but I would just encourage you to think through a difference between a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, let alone a 5-year-old. We proposed it as it was because we as a staff like that language. I think what I'm hearing you all today is try to decide upon whether it's a pharmacy and a grocery store versus item number 2, all persons entering public buildings. All persons entering any building open to the public in the county must wear a face mask versus grocery stores and pharmacies only. So if you told us to adopt the way Beaufort or Beaufort County was written, we would write into that the obvious exceptions to the rule. So.
well,
Mark, I, with all due respect, the way it's written is very confusing and it's very controversial to me. I'm trying to be very open-minded but I want to know what I'm voting on. And I mean, it's kind of looks like a lawyer's dream to me, that so, oh, well, you didn't say this in particular or that in particular. And when you say, it's not self-explanatory, it's confusing to me.
Larry, I agree. I think if Scott would go to 2A and make those wording changes, like Terry mentioned, let's do it now. And then I think we need to talk about age. Age is all over the board. I agree. I think we need to have an age limit, 10 and under. If that's what Savannah did, I think they did 10 and under.
Yeah. 8 or 10 under, I'm fine with that. But when you try to mask kids younger than that, I don't know who you're tricking, but
You're not going to.
Mine never listened that well.
No.
Okay, this is starting to sound like a workshop, which we probably should have had first. So let's just go with what we have, and our next council meeting, let's change what needs to be changed based on what we're finding. This is new to everybody. We're not going to get it right the first time anyway. So let's just go with what we have and leave the option open to come back and make adjustments, because we're going to be here all day if we keep picking that document.
Well, and Fred, also, I think it's very important with our geographical situation where half of our streets are in Bluffton, half are in Beaufort County. Until we see what Beaufort County has actually done, I'm open-minded to getting something passed that we all believe in, whether it's perfect for anybody or not. But I think it's very important to be on the same page as much as possible with Beaufort County, with You know, I mean, we have commercial property that's considered in the town, but technically it's in the county. We have residential people that live in the county that think they live in the town. I am all for trying to get this worked out and resolved so that we can all agree and getting it passed. You know, when we have it right.
I think we're close to that, but we can't. I don't think we're gonna get it perfect today. So most of us are looking at it today with a different set of eyes. So let's look at it tomorrow also. But we're gonna be here all day if we try to figure it out tonight.
I agree.
Well, he's put, I think, I'm not going to wait on the county. I would like to vote today and take the time to look at it.
Yes.
We're going to put it in a July meeting, that it's already going to be a lengthy one. And we've had our comments, and we're doing the best we can. We can vote on the one and vote it down on what we submitted, or Scott's got it right here. It was just 2A and 2C that needed to be changed. And he's got it right there. It's
There. And Mayor and Council, may I ask for clarification? It still says 2. Should we raise that to 8 or 10, as I heard?
Right. Yes, change it. Eight's good.
Thank you. And I would say that
8.
8.
What are we changing to 8?
one right there, the second line where your cursor is,
Under the age of 8?
Yes,
on
sir.
the age of 8.
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation. I was looking at the MASC model ordinance to see if they had a suggested age, and they do not. In their model ordinance, they simply have in brackets age cutoff.
Well, they want us to put it in there.
Jurisdiction should select their own age, which is kind of a slippery slope unless we're.
Okay. Can y'all look at that? Does that take into effect what the simple request to add to this ordinance is?
Mayor, this is Terry. Scott, if you would look on the right-hand page where you have B, you have on my screen, where it's the second sentence, for purposes of this ordinance. You can delete that because we're deleting grocery stores. So that language can come out.
Okay.
Just
well,
right
grocery
there.
stores are defined here.
The red.
The second sentence.
Understood. So no need to define grocery store then. Okay.
Yeah, you can get rid of that. And then that's good. And then what I would suggest we add is, if you will look at, go over to your left page, the last sentence of paragraph 3. If a worker or customer refuses, for other than medical reason, a business may decline service, I would suggest that we add that to as another sentence in our section B.
The last sentence.
Yes, we add that as another sentence.
Is that where you wanted it, Terry?
That's exactly right.
Right.
Hey, Terry,
Yes.
the left-hand side, the county, item 3 addresses like the city of Beaufort, the thing about the outdoor patios and stuff also.
Yeah, I like section 3 in the counties a little better than ours, with the exception, we've already stated that we do not want to have employees having to wear masks when they are close to other employees. That was what Councilman Toomer talked about, kitchens. So I would be comfortable with taking the entirety of county section 3 and moving it over to and replacing our little b. Does everybody understand what I'm talking about there?
Yeah. Yes.
The entirety of section 3?
If we took that whole section
Mhm.
and put it in for our section B,
All right.
if you'll do that, Scott, and then there'll be one tweak we have to make to that.
Wait. Don't take that following individuals. That's C. You just want to take B there.
Good catch.
I knew that. I was just testing you, man.
Good catch, man.
And then make sure in that wording, it's not, it was Larry's concern is not reiterated in that. Let's just make sure.
If you go down to the
Or
third
the
line, go
yes.
down to the third line there, Scott, which says when the general public is allowed, and make that a period,
Yes.
period right there. Now delete the remainder of that sentence.
Here you go.
There you go.
There you go. Now, I like that better. A, it's consistent with the county, and B, I think it does what Councilman Wood wanted about outdoors, et cetera. But if everybody would look at that, I think that does exactly what we want to do.
Okay.
Scott, that becomes C.
Yeah, it's an automatic formatting. I've got to go in and fix that.
Would you
Mary,
roll it back up so council can read that and just,
I will. And then I'll fix the formatting later, but
well, you're almost there. There you go.
And did we change the age?
Age under 8.
Age under 8.
it's here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
And we
Mary,
have in C, we have eating or drinking. So that was something we talked about earlier also. So that is an exemption. That's in there prominently, next to last sentence.
And I know this is a lot of changing, but by the time we had to notify the public, we were having a meeting, Mark had the Greenville ordinance to go by, and we did not know about Hilton Head. Hilton Head was going to do the Greenville ordinance, and so was Beaufort, and they did the same thing, but we're doing it with all the public watching, and I know it's a little extra work, but I think it's worth it for people to know where everybody's coming from.
And there's a lot more consistency.
Can y'all read that?
Yes.
Mayor and Council, is there anything else in the Beaufort County ordinance? Items 5 and below, if Scott scrolled through, that you believe should be captured?
I have one more thing I have to bring up. This is a lot of red writing to read right here. I love the color red, but this said this transportation, including tours in all businesses of delivery and service calls.
Tell me where you are.
Like the fifth.
Okay.
Okay, so if somebody's doing a boat tour out in the river, such as Shoemaker or Amber Hester or outside Hilton Head, they're out of business if you tell them that their people have to wear a mask out there in the river. That needs to be addressed. I don't know. I'm not going to wear a mask when I'm out in the boat.
You know, we were trying. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just trying to make sure what we sign off on is what we know about, not say, oh, I didn't see that. You know, that's.
Thank you for that. We don't have control over public or commercial transportation. That
But
is
it
from
says
the
it also
county.
applies to all persons providing or utilize public or commercial transportation, including tours in all businesses or employees while interacting with people in outdoor spaces, including but not limited to the outside pickup.
Yeah.
That's going too far.
Well, I mean, would you not, including tours? Tours means a lot of different things, many different kinds of tours. And if you wanted to say something from a water side, excluding, however you would word it, on the water tours or something like that. I think what they've been doing, Larry, is what I was told, because I've used Chris quite a bit lately, and basically they weren't mixing a lot of people together. They were keeping families only.
Absolutely. I understand that.
So, but we could clean that one up. We don't have to maybe do it now, but we could clean that one up the other part about the other part would be like Uber drivers and stuff. You know, you don't want to pile 3 or 4 people into an automobile, but the Uber driver's not doing what he needs to do. So I think that's what a lot of that represents.
I'm okay eliminating that whole sentence.
I couldn't agree with it in there, for whatever that's worth.
Well, if you do that, then you're taking out the outdoor spaces.
Well, it says including outdoor spaces.
I mean, I think if Lisa, you're saying take out commercial transportation and tours, that's a different animal.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, and I don't know that we're discussing walking in the park is because everything in the state says as long as you're not social distancing, you wear a mask when you're not social distancing.
Correct.
And that doesn't say that in there. So we could add when not practicing social distancing. That's the whole purpose of wearing a mask when you're closer than 6 feet apart.
Yeah, and that was one thing, not one of the ordinances that I read, never once did anybody mention social distancing. And I was going to bring that up, so I think that's a valid argument.
The governor of North Carolina issued an executive order that requires face coverings in certain situations, but in almost every situation that's listed, they specifically wrote in that masks are required when you're within 6 feet of another person.
Right. That's what I've seen everywhere.
Yes, Terry.
Mayor, in response to Councilman Toomer's boat tour question, if we looked at that specific sentence, the requirement also applies to persons providing or utilizing, if we then added over the road, public or commercial transportation, I believe that might solve the problem.
I agree.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Terry.
So we have, if we have, for instance, if the Gullah Tours came out to Bluffton, or if there was some type of other tour facility or bus, over the road would cover it. Out on the water would not be involved in that situation. So perhaps we add those 3 words there, and that would take care of at least some of Councilman Toomer's concerns.
Do we have jurisdiction over the waterways anyway? I don't think we do. So why are we making that an issue? We don't have any way to control that.
Through a formal agreement with the Beaufort County Sheriff's Office, we do have limited jurisdiction in our waterways adjacent to town now.
I don't think so.
Well, it's out now.
Actually,
It's been removed. So I agree, Fred. We've taken it off.
I did.
Scott, one more edit.
yes.
Second line, item B, second line, change county to town.
Thank you.
London sleeps in the day, but she wakes up at night. Lonnie usually stays
Somebody's child's talking about
in the
sleeping.
day.
Sorry about that.
I just didn't want to say something that you didn't want on Facebook.
I'll put a
Okay,
note there.
Okay.
I have been taking pretty extensive notes while y'all have been talking. I know that we have covered the initial concerns expressed by Councilman Toomer and Councilwoman Frazier. We have probably gone beyond where Councilman Hamilton suggested we go. I happen to think that the closer we are to the Beaufort County ordinance, the easier it will be on our police department and the sheriff's department to figure out who's who and who's what. So I think we've gone a great distance from the original Greenville format to where we are right now.
I agree.
And is there anything else, Mayor Salka, may I speak? Is there anything else in the Beaufort County ordinance on the left side of the screen that town council would like captured? I believe we've been through all of those items, most of which are already embedded into the provisions of our proposed ordinance in a different fashion.
Council?
I'll speak up right now. This is the first time I've ever seen this. You know, we didn't get this yesterday or the day before. I mean, apparently it wasn't available from what I read, you know, this morning online. I don't know that there's nothing in there, but
Okay.
it is kind of off the hip too, you know, because we really haven't had time to read it or study it.
Larry, it's verbatim other than the age as the two ordinances we've had from Hilton Head and Beaufort. And the fine, and that it's criminal rather than civil.
Right.
Yeah. You know me though, I'm old fashioned. I like to read it nice and slow and see what I catch or I don't catch. But it's fine. It's I understand this is an emergency meeting and we need to move forward. So I have one, before we go to vote on this, I do have one question for Mr. Finger.
Yes, sir.
Terry, are you there?
I'm here. Go ahead, Larry.
Okay. I want your opinion totally on this ordinance that we, in your opinion, we have the legal rights to not only pass it, but to enforce it without legal problems down the road and council members being included on civil lawsuits or anything else. Are we protected in your opinion? And you're the only one that I have to ask that to.
In light of the Attorney General's opinion, not an official opinion, but his memo that came out, I think it was Thursday, either Thursday or Friday. Our South Carolina Attorney General has said each municipality does have the legal right to pass a mask ordinance. I can tell you that prior to that opinion coming out, a number of municipal attorneys, including myself, felt that this was a Governor McMaster exclusive power. But with the Attorney General's memo, yes, my opinion is we do have, the town of Bluffton does have a right to pass a mask ordinance. Your second question is are the individual council members protected? I believe that the answer to that on a number of points is yes. First off, you have invoked what is commonly referred to as the business judgment rule, which means you've discussed it properly. You've sought the input of requisite other people who are supposed to be experts in their field, and you've been able to rely on that. So you would be covered under the business judgment rule. And then secondly, you have not violated anyone's civil rights, in my opinion, or constitutional rights, in my opinion. And third, and perhaps as important as anything else, is we have coverage with the Insurance Reserve Fund for anything that would come out of someone disagreeing and trying to sue us. Last but not least, this is an ordinance that would last 61 days. In law, there's a concept of mootness, mootness, which means if someone sued us, this would be moot by the time we got to court because the ordinance would have expired. And we are not keeping people from doing anything other than protecting themselves and others. And I believe that's first and foremost in council's mind. I know I rambled a little bit on your two questions, Councilman Toomer. Have I answered them to your satisfaction?
Yes, thank you, Terry. And you know, this is a really, it's a tough thing to do and to vote on. And Lord knows I want to do the right thing, but I also want my questions answered before I put my signature on a piece of paper. I've learned that through the years. If you don't read the fine print, that's normally the way you get burnt, to put it that way.
And from an enforcement perspective, I didn't really answer that question. Yes, we do have the ability to enforce it. We specifically added language to this draft that said our municipal court has jurisdiction. It is my fervent desire that that the police department and and our chief will not issue any type of citations ever on this ordinance, but that we will kind of bump people in the right direction, educate them as well as we can, and get them to please do what we think is in everyone's best interest. So this is not something that we should even hope that we make any money on or issue any tickets. I hope we don't. The chief will instruct his officers. We'll be as kind and patient and firm as we need to be, depending on each situation.
Right. And I agree with you totally on that, Terry. I hope that there's not a ticket written or a fine imposed or anything else. But as we're speaking about it today too, with this country's unrest and the things that are going on around us, you know, maybe not here in our little town that we love and we call home, but there are people who will test, you know, the legal system on anything close to anything they think they have a chance on. One call, that's all. You see it on TV. So there's more than likely an opportunity for someone to sue us or whatever the procedure may be. And I just wanted to make sure that in your opinion that Larry Toomer is clear if I vote to approve this ordinance.
It's my opinion that not only Councilman Toomer is clear, but the other four also.
Thank you.
Mark,
Yes, sir.
I would like to ask staff, and I don't know how difficult this will be, but those of us in the county, the other municipals, and I do not know what the county will do, but obviously we're trying to pass something which we believe is a health-related ordinance to possibly save lives and keep people from becoming as sick. So at the end of 60 days, we need to know what kind of measurements have been taken to determine, you know, for one thing that's had me confused the whole time watching all the stuff come out from the state about the number of COVID cases in Beaufort County, is the fact that the Bluffton zip code, which I understand means Greater Bluffton and Bluffton, has the highest numbers, but yet the greatest volume of tourists and people are on Hilton Head. And so I've been confused by that from day one. I can't even understand why our numbers are so much higher than Hilton Head. So at the end of this period of time, I would like to see the town managers get together and maybe the county, if they come on board, and try to determine if this has been any measurement of success or not.
Understand.
I would agree that, and with Scott being on the DHEC calls and the Beaufort Memorial calls, I think we can all, starting Friday for the next 14 days at least, to see if something happens. Sorry for my background noise. Any other questions of Terry on the legal side of it? Any questions of Mark? Any other questions or concerns? Hearing none, are y'all ready to make a motion on this ordinance? Hearing none, I will, I need a motion. Where is the, is there a motion to approve the emergency ordinance of the town of Bluffton requiring individuals to wear face coverings in certain circumstances in light of the COVID-19 pandemic as changed in today's meeting on Scott's documents?
So moved.
I lost it. Who said it?
Fred.
Fred made the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Dan made a second. Any discussion? This is a 50-50. You can't go right or wrong on this. I hope that people who are speaking thinking this is a political matter understand it isn't. This is a council of 5 members. I just run a meeting of council. We all have our ability to vote, and I think we did a great job changing this when it was hard for some on council. We're doing the best we can do without a playbook. We don't have one. If anyone that has spoken throughout all of this has a suggestion of a playbook somewhere, we'd like to know it. But we need to keep our residents safe, and our business community, for the most part, not everyone, has has supported this. And I think it's a good ordinance, and I hope in 60 days it made a difference and we can get back to living our lives. This is very hard for all of us. So just a reminder, I do know on Facebook, I turned off, I just wanted to see the numbers that were on. We do not accept public comment on Facebook. We have a rule for public comment and it's very clear. So if someone wants to respond to them post council, have at it. But that's not part of our council meeting.
Lisa, did we
Any
do
other
roll call?
What?
Roll call for the vote?
Yeah.
I
well,
would, I would like to make,
we
I
have
would like,
discussion right now, Kim. We're in
I
discussion.
would like to make a
Any other
comment
discussion?
before we, I'd like to make a comment before we vote.
Yes, sir.
I just want to say, I want to piggyback on to what you were saying, Meg. Yes, this has been difficult. This has probably been the most difficult decision that each of us have had to make in the time we've been on council. And I don't take it lightly. I've heard my friends who are opposed to it. I've heard my friends that are in favor of it. But to me, it just boils down to health issue. It's like seat belts are a health issue. Smoking used to be everywhere. Now you can't smoke on a plane or in a lot of restaurant businesses. It's health related and nothing more. And we're just trying to do some good work here to hopefully save a few lives and keep a few people from being impacted by COVID. Thank you.
Yes, if I may comment, Mayor? Mayor.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
so-
Yes. Sorry, I had dogs barking.
I just wanted to follow up too. You know, I have been opposed to this, not mainly because of anything other than I just not a big fan of big government. You know, government telling people what they can do, what they can't do, and all that. And I've never been like that. You know, I've grew with my knowledge and what is happening. I've listened, I've talked, I've researched, I've looked at the numbers, I've looked at the situations, and a lot of them are just as clear as mud, you know, for some aspects of what works, what doesn't work, and what's going to happen. I don't think any of us know exactly when this virus is going to go away. I know because my family has been touched by it, and I am the last person in the world that wants anyone to be endangered by anything that I could possibly do. So I'm here and I understand. I've got tons of people that have told me how much they are against it. And to be personally with you, I put the mask on 4 or 5 times today and I can't stand it. I won't be spending much money in the shop, so it'll probably help me financially. So anyway, I just want everybody to know, the ones that know me, know what I stand for and who I am. And I it's a very tough decision, but if we can save one life, then I'm in it. I'm here. Thank you. You're quiet.
Yeah, I knew that. Any other discussion?
Yes, I'll take a stab at it as well.
Yes, Mr. Hamilton.
First of all, I know how Dan and Larry felt for some time, and I kind of hear that they said things that today that was different from yesterday, and I want them to know I appreciate that, because we are in a place where doing nothing has proven that we're not in a better place, and that's what we've been doing for the last at least month and a half. First, in March, we had a stay home mandate, and then we opened up everything. And within the last month and a half, everything turned around. We're in a worse place than we've been since March. So doing nothing has improved to help us curb the numbers. And if one person died and that person lives in Canada, my heart aches. So I don't care about how much people are dying versus now and then. I don't want to lose no life, none. Nobody should have to suffer or die, and their family have to deal with this in any way. So being and I hate the fact that we're being reactive. We should have, our state should have been proactive. Our country should have been proactive. So we're in place in a time now where being our brother's people, loving others and caring for others is what God wants us to do. And we can't continue to look the other way when we know that this thing is serious and it's really affecting lives and families and even our economy, which to me is not important if we don't have health and a quality of life. So I'm voting for quality of life, and that's how I feel. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Yes, I just want to say that I applaud all of my fellow council members and everyone who's been working on this. We've all taken on a very difficult task in making an unpopular decision, but our main goal from the beginning has always been to protect our citizens, and it's not just those who might be against it, but it's all of our citizens understanding. And I think it's important that everyone focuses on, the number of deaths hasn't been that great, but what we do miss is that in South Carolina alone, where there have been about almost 40,000 cases, we have those who get the illness and then have to be quarantined for quite some time. And so knowing that people already don't have access to quality health care or affordable housing, and these essential workers are going out every single day, making sure that we can have takeout, that we can patronize, grocery stores and pharmacies. I think putting these measures and thinking about their protection is equally as important, because they don't have the resources to be able to have to sit out for 14 days without a check and without the ability to be able to go and work. So, for those who are not understanding of this measure, know that we are making a difficult task here, decision to protect everyone. And at the end of the day, we hope that, that gets respected once, all this winds down. We hope to be able to come out of this as a stronger community and with our businesses intact, because I think we're all on the same page. We don't want to see any business in Bluffton have to, board up their doors or have to close down because we didn't make the decision to, do something that was difficult. So I'm grateful to see that we're putting the needs of everyone out here.
Thank you, Ms. Frazier. Any other discussion? If Scott could put that back up on the board, the red line, just so we can keep it. And when will we see this ordinance for the public? Because I know they saw something different in our packet. Any other discussion? If not, we'll do a roll call, Kim.
Okay.
You gonna do it?
All right, Dan Wood,
Aye.
Fred Hamilton,
Aye.
Larry Toomer. Oh, Larry Toomer. He's on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Aye.
Bridget Frazier,
Aye.
Lisa Solka.
Aye. That's unanimous. And just for public purposes, you can see in red what the requirements are. It does speak to those who have medical issues, and it speaks to those of young children and those who are not able to put masks on. I think that was something Kim Chapman had sent me a text quickly that we wanted to make sure was covered. So, okay, that's unanimous. And this will go into effect tomorrow.
Yes.
I'll have this posted online as soon as we can get it on there.
Good. So it'll be online.
Ratified, and then we'll place it online.
Great. So do you think by close of business?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, I appreciate that. Okay, thank you all for meeting. Is there anything else to discuss?
Mayor, just one thing. I'd like to publicly thank Mark and Scott and Kim for the amount of effort that they put in organizing all these ordinances from all over the Southeast looking at all of them. There's probably, I would say probably 100 emails back and forth between the four of us since Wednesday or Thursday last week. And I just want to publicly say thank you for all the effort that they did. I know council knows how hard they work, but to get this in front of you as coherently as they did, as fast as they did, is a credit to your staff. So thank you.
Terry, if you're trying to get a raise for either one of them, only one I'm voting for is Kim. So that's a good try.
There's Kim's smile.
All
If
right,
Kim-
there you go, Kim.
Kim should get a
Thanks,
raise
Brett.
of how many public comments she reads within 30 minutes.
Absolutely.
Just
All right.
as a reminder, there are a lot of people, I think, quickly I checked, there were a lot of people following us. If you want a public comment, you absolutely can do it. We take it 2 hours before and earlier of a council meeting, and our wonderful town clerk reads it. Unless we change things, that's the way we're going to keep going about it until we can meet again. If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
I make that motion.
Is there a second?
So moved.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all.